Hi, I'm Karen Rustad, and I'm going to talk a bit about applying user experience design principles to free software community management. So, in this paper that a bunch of you read about diversity and outreach in free software projects, towards the end of my research, I stumbled upon this quote by Vittorio Emiliano. It goes, "I believe the problems with open source, not being able to handle non-programmers in their projects, is the same problem as the rampant sexism. Open source culture is not feminist. Feminism is fundamentally about equality for everyone, not just women, and designers of any gender are just as alienated as women programmers because it's not an equally welcoming environment. There's no perceived value in open source for mentoring, facilitation, disciplining of unruly users, training of newcomers or non-technical users, and so forth, which are needed to support both designers of any gender and women in any role." When I first came across this quote, I kind of wanted to get it tattooed on my forehead. It made precisely the point that I wanted to make. Because, as you saw in my paper, the contrapositive also seems to be true. If you make free software projects open and welcoming of designers and newcomers and not perfectly technical contributors, they tend to also become more friendly to women, just necessarily, even without gender-specific outreach. Another reason why I really like this quote is that it gets at two groups that I know and love very well. One, I'm a woman, and two, my background is in design. And it got me thinking, well, given that both of these groups tend to be underrepresented in free software, what insights could we be missing out on? Not just in terms of what free software projects look like, but how the projects themselves are run. So I thought about what insights user experience designers might have for free software. And so usability research tends to have a reputation of being mostly concerned about, well, money. You measure success by how many clicks, how many abandoned shopping carts, how many successful purchases or donations, and how many monetized eyeballs your product gets. Now, individual designers come to the discipline often because they're concerned about users. They want to build a product that people find useful and helpful and joyful to use. But in terms of how the discipline justifies its existence, it usually comes down to money, even at Wikipedia. In a community management context, in free software projects, where you're concerned with user experience, contributor experience, the currency isn't money. It's something far more valuable and infinitely more powerful. Human enthusiasm. Enthusiasm will win you wars. It's what makes free software work, what makes it happen. But it's also fragile and easy to lose steam. And so you have to take care of it. Now, how you get enthusiasm, how you get people excited about your project and wanting to contribute, mostly comes down to your mission and also to your marketing department. And that's outside the scope of this talk. But assuming that you have an enthusiastic group of people who want to help you, how do you avoid dropping them on the floor and channeling their enthusiasm in a way that's going to be effective? So, here's a funnel. Now, you may have seen this model before. It's a fairly common one in marketing textbooks and the like. The idea generally being that as you go forward in terms of the amount of commitment you're asking from people, you whittle and whittle down the number of people who are going to be involved at each given level. So there's more people who have heard of your product than use it. There's more people who use your product than recommend it to all their friends. There's more people who start the checkout process than get to the end, and so on and so forth. There's a bit of entropy involved where at each step of the process you're multiplying by some value, some percentage that's equal to or less than 1. And that's true of free software projects and of contributions as well. You have a lot of people who've heard of your project, a smaller number than that who use it, and an even smaller number who actually contribute back to it. However, the slope of that line varies on the project and various things that you can control. So the big promise with free software, the big thing that makes it valuable, and unique is the idea that anyone can contribute, that it's a meritocracy, and anyone is able to get involved. Now, it seems like that would gloss over some things, though. Like, what are the dependencies in terms of what people expect from new contributors? What do we think they're already going to know? What are the prerequisites for getting involved? So, we should probably evaluate the statement, anyone can contribute, with a bit of a critical eye. So, yeah, anyone can contribute who uses the internet, who has access to computers, and for most projects, reads and writes English proficiently. You can probably add a fourth, that they like your project and actually want to get involved. Well, okay. So it's not literally anyone can contribute, but this list still seems pretty reasonable, right? But that's not all. What other prerequisites are there? People who have lots of free time. People who have programming skills, even for non-technical contributions most of the time. Moreover, people who are confident in those skills, that feel lead enough that they'll be able to contribute in a useful way. People who are willing to ask complete strangers for feedback and help. People who have a high tolerance for flaming in a lot of projects, if they want to stick around on the mailing list. And even more stuff. And none of this even gets at the specific technical suite of what language the project's in, what libraries it uses, those kinds of specific areas of expertise. It's just all the groundwork for getting involved. Some of that you can evade if you know one of the project leads and are able to ask them for help and to tutor you on the things you don't already know. But that's also a pretty limited set of people. So in the end, anyone can contribute. It's a nice sentiment, but it's also a clever lie. And for now, I'll just leave you with this sentiment. If even front-end people, designers, artists, project managers, and the like, need to know all of this stuff in order to get involved in your average free software project, how many of them are you likely to get? Alright, so let's get at this point a different way. One fun exercise for evaluating your new contributor process is to make a process diagram, a literal diagram of what it takes to get involved for contributors. Now, if you've been contributing for a while, you probably think of the process at a pretty high level, because you're used to all the nitty-gritty involved, and you know how to get things done in your project. Yeah, so, okay, 5 steps. We fit them on one slide. Awesome. Contributing to free software must be easy. Well, if you look at it from the perspective of a newcomer, on the other hand, it's by no means nearly as straightforward. I'm just going to zoom through these slides. Okay, run into the bug. Okay, let's make a bug. Oh, crap. Oops. Well, okay, let's see the old version of the bug. Okay, this is a big decision. I decided that I think I can fix this problem. Okay, get the code, set it up. Oh, yeah, bash. Okay, we're IRC? Okay. Never used IRC before, but I bet I can figure this out. Join the channel. Okay, let's ask. Oh. I'll ask again. Oh, okay, that's what I was doing wrong. Okay, some hand waving here. Who knows what exactly was going wrong with getting the development environment set up, but somehow, finally get it running. Okay, now to figure out what part of the code do I need to change to fix the bug. Oh. Okay, keep trying. Yes, success. I fixed the bug. I'm almost done, right? Oh, okay, never made a patch before. Oh, was anyone gonna review my patch that I put together? Oh, rejected. There's a style guide? What? Okay, okay, find the style guide, read it, fix the patch. Okay, more nagging. Okay, oh, and we're on to the flaming. Okay, finally, the maintainers have decided I am worthy of getting my bug fix in. Success! Yeah. The worst e-commerce website, the worst shopping cart software on the internet isn't half as frustrating as that process. It's complex, it's frustrating, it's enthusiasm draining. It's hard to imagine someone actually getting through all those steps, all those obstacles, and not just giving up. And that's a relatively best case scenario as far as free software contribution goes. Like, lots of these things get left on the floor. And given all that, it's kind of a miracle that anyone gets involved with this stuff. Well, maybe we could do something about that. So, the main message I want you guys to take away here is that projects should be conscious of their dependencies. And that's not just software dependencies, that's also expertise and skills that your project takes for granted. And then, once you've mapped out what exactly those are, think about, okay, well, some of those prerequisites are going to be unavoidable. Like, people have to want to contribute. That's fairly reasonable. But some prerequisites don't have to be as much of an obstacle as they are. For instance, you could have really, really good documentation. That'll get around a lot of these problems. In order to write that awesome documentation, it's often helpful to watch a newcomer try to build your project for the first time and see where they get stuck and how you can make that process work better for them. Linking to relevant tutorials and guides, like, okay, maybe you don't want to write your own tutorial for everything from tar to bash to Git to everything under the sun that your project's dependent on, and that's fine. But there are tutorials for those things out there, and if you link to them in contextual, appropriate places where people will be able to find them, that'll do loads for making the process run much smoother. Providing clear entry points for newcomers, like bite-sized bugs, weekly contributor meetings where people are supposed to ask questions, in-person events even. All of these sorts of things are good for newcomers who want to get involved but don't know where to start. As the saying goes, a lever affords pulling. If you give someone something specific and doable and tell them to go do it, the funny thing is, a lot of them will. It's as simple as that. And a bit of an open hatch plug. My main open source software project, OpenHatch, provides both training missions and web tools for helping new contributors get involved in free software. And we also do some stuff as well for projects that are trying to become more newcomer friendly. So if you have more specific questions about your project and how to make it better, please talk to us. And then finally, what prerequisites for this whole free software contribution process can we get rid of altogether? Like the flaming. How can we try to make the culture one where rude emails and the like aren't acceptable? So remember this diagram again. Now, the fact that there's entropy involved in a complex system and that people slough off at each stage of commitment, I mean, that's always going to be true. But the slope of the line varies, and also who gets dropped off varies as well. The thing about this process is it isn't neutral. The tiny set of people at the end doesn't look exactly the same in terms of makeup as the people who were in the initial pool at the beginning. All of these steps filter for people with particular skills, with particular personality traits, and certain backgrounds. And so, one reason to care about all this stuff isn't just that it's going to make your community smaller. It's also going to make it more homogeneous in terms of skill set and homogeneous in terms of background. You can see my paper for some interesting points where steps in this process tend to filter out women, even ones that you wouldn't necessarily think would. So, what of all this? Well, some projects aren't that concerned with community growth or handling newcomers. It is a lot of work, after all. And maybe you're just working on a hobby project, or maybe you've just got one primary corporate sponsor that you need to please, and you don't really care about outside contributions. And if that's the case, that's perfectly all right. You don't really have to care about this stuff. But if you do want to grow your community, and if you do want to be friendly and open and accepting of new contributors, you might take a look at what does your contributor experience look like and feel like. When people give you their enthusiasm, the most precious resource they have, what happens to it? Does it get dropped on the floor? Does it get ground down by minutia? Or is it acknowledged and funneled, directed in ways that are productive? Just remember, just because your contributors are willing to go to hell and back for your project doesn't mean you should make them do so. Thank you.